is holding back the auto sector? Why has the auto sector growth gone from 12% to 3% in the last 12 years? This is something Maruti Suzuki chairman RC Bhargava has spoken about today, and his comments about taxations and regulations on the auto sector have been quite sharp. He claims high taxes have made cars out of reach for the majority of Indians. It's not just him, by the way, who's flagged this concern in recent times. Several other manufacturers have also raised the issue. Toyota suggests the government should reduce tax on cars by at least 50% in the next 10 years. Are cars, in terms of tax, treated as a luxury item in India, and do we need to reduce the tax to spur demand? Are there regulatory concerns, and what's the roadmap? To speak on all of this, we're going to talk now to our expert panel. But before that, let me just play out for you what Shashank Srivastava, Senior Executive Officer, Marketing and Sales at Maruti India, said on the issue.
The auto industry can see a much higher growth if the taxation was lower, and I think that's something which is which is a very obvious thing to say. So any sector where taxation is lower, probably the possibilities of higher growth exist. And that is what I think the chairman said, Mr. Bhargava pointed out, that in India, if somehow we could bring the taxation down for the industry would see much higher growth, and therefore the motorization of the country can be achieved much faster. But obviously, he also pointed out that it's the government which has an overall view of the economy, a much better view of the economy.
And I'm going across now to Ketan Thakkar, Group Business Editor at Autocar India, TP Oswal, International Tax Expert, and Nikunj Sanghi, MD at JS for Wheel Motor. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us today. Ketan, great to have you on the show. Let me begin with your take on Mr. Bhargava's comments. He is known to speak his mind, and that, comes as a breath of fresh air. But is he reiterating these concerns of the auto sector at a very important time, just a few months from the next budget?
Yes, I think so. And like you said, he has spoken about this in the past as well. And in fact, over the last couple of years, we have seen a significant impact on their core, which is the bread and butter segment, which is the entry car segment. And because of that, over the last 10 years, like you mentioned earlier, the compounded annual growth rate of the market has remained in the 3% zone. And this was the next big market for all the global multinational corporations. And bringing the people into motorization, the large middle class and the growing economy, these were factors that everyone was looking forward to, and one was expecting motorization to grow. But because of increasing, regulatory challenges and new norms, the prices have gone up, and they've put the vehicle prices beyond the reach of a lot of people at the bottom end of the pyramid. And that's exactly what Mr. Bhargava has been saying over the years, that regulations are critical, but over-regulation has been hurting the sector, and that's what he was reiterating yesterday.
I want to talk about the extent of taxation, Mr. Ostwal. What RC Bhargava is saying is something that the auto industry has been saying for a while. Why are you treating cars as luxury? A lot of segments are taxed at 28%. Then you have an additional cess between 1 to 22%, mostly on the higher side. So you could end up paying a very, very high tax for your car. Do you think that's justified, and why is that taxation structure there in India, Mr. Oswal?
You see, we went to a change in the regime from the VAT to GST. So initially, it was reduced, the rate of tax was levied. The collections, of course, has remained same, but government felt that there is a need to increase the collection of GST through sin goods and the luxury goods taxation. So therefore, a new category of taxation was introduced. Maximum GST is only 18%, but the 10% additional was levied on the luxury goods and sin goods. And that is how this new category came in. And unfortunately, the government did not distinguish between small cars or a car segment which is below particular value and luxury cars. I believe if you are taxing luxury cars, people who are buying luxury cars are people who can afford. So therefore, there is there is a full rationale for levying the tax at a little higher rate. But smaller car, less than say 10 lakhs of rupees, it is a Aam Aadmi ka car. So why there should be a tax of 28%? Let it be 18%. And otherwise, but unfortunately, one thing I must say, the government also must have thought that the roads are not in a position to accommodate all these cars, and therefore let's have some more tax so that people don't bring so many cars on the road. That must be one of the reasons why I believe, because today I am just now, for example, from my office in Lower Parel to go to Parel, it takes me 45 minutes to 1 hour. So you can imagine the roads are chock-a-block. So therefore there is a
And that's
justification
catch
for
22 because you also want to encourage the domestic industry. You also want to be a hub for auto manufacturing. You have major multinational auto companies who've packed their bags and left India in the last few years. Let me get Nikunj Sanghi into this debate. Nikunj Sanghi, when we're talking about the taxes and the taxation on domestically produced cars, let's not even go into CBUs that are imported. Those are taxed at 60 to 100%. So what is the kind of regulatory framework? Do you agree with Mr. Bhargava today when he says that's prohibitive? It's not us that is, charging high prices and less people are buying cars. It's the taxation that is keeping India from such a poor penetration of four-wheelers even today.
I couldn't agree more with Mr. Bhargava. I think what he's saying is right. Mobility is now more a need than a luxury. And specifically at the bottom of the pyramid, I think the right to go to work, the right to your livelihood, I think everything is to do with mobility. And by such a high rate of tax, obviously the cars and even two-wheelers have gone beyond the reach of the common man. And I would agree with Mr. Oswal that while luxury cars could have been probably taxed as luxury, but small cars and two-wheelers, I think they definitely need to be considerate about the common man and the need for mobility, because in most places, and specifically tier 2, tier 3 cities, there is no public transport, there is no mass transport. How do you commute? I think that definitely needs reconsideration.
Ketan, just on the point that TP Oswal was making, that is the taxation policy also a way to restrict the number of four-wheelers because you want to push public mobility, you want to reduce traffic? Is that thought there at all? Because it doesn't seem to have helped,
Yes.
to be honest.
Yes, I agree there. And we have heard Mr. Gadkari speaking about it several times at the annual convention that, there's tremendous stress on the road infrastructure, even as he's trying to add, 20 to 30 kilometers of road construction per day. But, it's putting stress on the infrastructure. He, in fact, mentioned that he would want as many people moving to public transport as possible, even as he's encouraging industry to come out with more cleaner and safer options. So yes, I mean, in a way, we've heard the narrative from the government because of the stress on the infrastructure and stress on the environment as well. I mean, India, there are so many cities which are polluted, and that also kind of puts a lot of pressure. And one questions, where would all these millions of two-wheelers and cars go? But like Mr. Sanghi mentioned, mobility is a basic need today. And you really need to encourage till the time the public transport system in the country does not evolve and mature. People are going to rely on personal mobility to meet their daily mobility needs. So, government has been wanting to encourage public transport, but the pace of development is not being that good for a layman to kind of, move from personal mobility to a public transport.
Again, if it is because you want to cut traffic that you're charging high taxes, Mr. Oswal, my question will be, why is it not working? There is no dearth of sales. Auto industry, in fact, is now reporting that sales are improving. We'll try and reconnect with Mr. Oswal, but I take that question to Mr. Sanghi. It's not really helping the traffic, and actually, if you go to see at least what the auto sector has been saying, the numbers from the last couple of months shows that there is a return from purchasers.
Well, yes. So specifically speaking of passenger cars, I think we have seen a boom, and I think a lot of it needed to do with the need for personal mobility as compared to shared mobility post-COVID. And I think that's the reason why a lot of people went and bought cars, and 2-3 years when they did not spend, I think they were saving. And because they were saving, they got into buying their own personal cars. But when it comes to reducing the number of cars on roads, I think we will need to have a look at the government's own policy, the Automotive Mission Plan. The Automotive Mission Plan has given a calendar on where the automobile industry needs to go over the next 10 years. And the policy, the tax policy seems to be at probably a diagrammatically opposite ends when it comes to the number of cars the government would want on roads versus the kind of taxation that they are taking.
Absolutely. So the pain point continues. Ketan Thakkar, all these demand lists will grow longer before the budget. Any real expectations from the industry that something will happen?
Well, not really. I mean, we've heard the pleas from the industry on several occasions in the past, and we've seen much steeper decline in the market in 2018, 2019. The government has always been saying that, they'll have a good listing year to the industry, but it doesn't appear so. What we understand is that government's priority is on ensuring that the basic needs are met, the health, the sanitation, the infrastructure, and automotive industry appears to be actually at the bottom end of the pyramid. Where automotive industry gets priority is on clean and green mobility, and that is one area where the government of India is pushing, and one can see a positive impact of that in the marketplace.
Right. So strong comments coming there from RC Bhargava. Let's see if others in the industry also chime in. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on the discussion. We'll take a very short break.